Hello, Miss Sandra. You don't have to unmute. I know you're eating lunch. I just wanted to say hi. The purpose of today is to make sure everybody's got the wheels turning on their business planning for 2025. And we can go a variety of directions. I am going to start with the PowerPoint presentation, but I'm encouraging all of you guys to jump in with questions and let me know, what your pain points are and what your brainstorm ideas are for, whether or not you're retreating, if you're solo planning. We'll get into all of that. So let me go ahead and do a share screen here real quick. And I'm going to split my screen so I can see both things that are going on, if that's okay with you guys. If I look away, it's not because I'm not paying attention. There we go. I'm all set now. So here we go. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. So let's start by you guys sharing what is your typical process for starting your business planning for the coming year? What are the first 2 or 3 things that you do?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
In the past, I have a lender friend that typically has some type of a business planning get together. And so a lot of times it's the same people, and she has kind of an outline of that we use, and we go through and just we start with marketing typically and kind of dig into how we're going to market. This year she's not having it for quite a while, so I've actually been like sitting here trying to get started, and so I just decided this looked really, really good. Maybe I'm missing something because I've been doing the same thing, for the past like 5 years, and thought maybe I just need to look at this differently. So here I am.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you decided to join us. Sandra, how about you? What's your normal process?
I always start with my focus on marketing planning because that's my strong suit. I probably ought to start somewhere else, but it makes it easier for me.
Yeah, there's no audit in this. I'm going to give a flow, but it's just one way of looking at things. So I'm interested in you all getting to the end result. To me, that's the most important thing. So how you get there is less important to me than you get all the pieces you need to have a good, comprehensive strategy for how you're going to make the year what you want it to be. How about you guys, Dave?
Well, I'd say we pretty much started off by looking at what's been working and where the results are coming from. And that typically brings us back to the real marketing program for the neighborhoods we've selected. And quite frankly, the pie party in Omaha that we still do, because we're still, well, Judy's still licensed in Nebraska. We still focus on that. In fact, she's going next week for another listing. So it's always review what's working and what can we refine about what's working.
Absolutely. So I'm going to cover these 5 key areas real quick. And then I just want to, let's take a deep dive, if that's okay with you guys, on the data that needs to be gathered. So we start with these 5 key elements. Think of it as 5 points on a star. So we have your identity, your business identity. We have the financial plan. We have the marketing plan, Sandra's favorite. We have team building, and even if you're a solo agent, there are things that need to be addressed from a quote unquote team standpoint. We'll talk about that. And then your systems. So when we say identity, what exactly am I talking about when I say that? Identity consists of what's your vision. When you think about, let's all just pretend for a second it's December 31st, 2025. And we are all sitting around a nice fire at the fire pit on Dave Smith's back porch. And I'm raising a glass of bourbon. You can raise your sweet tea or whatever makes you happy. And we're toasting the year that we really wanted to have. What do we see? And I'm going to take you through that exercise in a minute. That's what vision is to me. Then we have mission. That's a public facing statement. You may already have a mission statement you're really clear on and happy with, or maybe this is the year you decide you're going to tweak what you have, or maybe you don't have one and this is the year you decide to develop one. But it's what you do for people. So your vision is who you want to be, what you want your life to be like, and your mission is your do. So we've got a be and a do statement. Then I hope all of you have clarity on what your core values are. And if you don't, I've got an exercise that I can send you to work on that. I'm happy to do that. Just email me at amy@starpower and I'll send it on along your way. We won't spend time on that today. The other part of identity is another part of your identity is your guiding principles. And that's just your rules for living. So, you know, we all grow up with the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. You can identify your own guiding principles for life. And then what's your purpose? Now, this is where a lot of people get stuck, and a lot of people don't even touch this in a business planning process because they have no idea what their purpose is. And that's okay. I didn't know clearly what mine was until I was 50 years old. So that could be its own separate session too. And we're not going to get too deep into that today, other than I just want to share, most of you know what my purpose is. I've got a whole lot of kiddos in Tanzania specifically that I really want to see get into private school, get a prime education, and break the cycle of poverty they currently live in. So I'm crystal clear about that. And then that picture on the right is me climbing Kilimanjaro in 2019. I'm going to do it again next year with a handful of people to raise awareness for the foundation. So when you think of purpose, it's something greater than yourself that drives you to want to succeed. I want to succeed. We all want to succeed for the common reasons. We want to pay the bills. We want to enjoy life. Maybe we want to travel. Maybe we want to fund somebody's education. Maybe we want to retire some debt. But purpose is bigger than all that. It sits above and outside of all those things. And again, if you want some help getting clarity on your purpose, reach out to me. We'll spend 20, 30 minutes to get the ball rolling for you. I talked about vision. And I'm just going to touch on that. And I grabbed the old slide deck, so forgive the 2022 in there. It should say 2025. But I only want to hover on this for just a brief moment to say, when you start painting that vision for December 31st, 2025, I really want you to drill down on all 5 senses. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? What do I smell? What do I feel? Really tap into all of that. So you're sitting on the beach, you're hearing the ocean waves, you can smell the salty air, all of those things. Really put yourself in the vision of where you ended up as a result of your success in that year. The more vividly you paint the picture, the more likely it is to manifest in your life. All right, so let's jump right in. This is where everybody typically goes when I say business planning. Financial plan. And they usually think of this production. So for some people, that's units. For some people, it's volume. For others, it's both. And then they think, okay, what am I going to need to spend to make that money? That's typically as deep as anybody goes on their business planning. I'd like to take you guys a little deeper today and just talk about getting to the next level with all of this, which is truly, and marketing plan is a big part of this, Sandra already mentioned, because once we identify where that production is going to come from, we need to have a strategy for each silo. I'll call them silos. Each channel of business we're going to count on to produce a certain amount of business. So if we just talk about the production goals for a minute, a lot of times people just pick a number. I want next year to be the year that I clear $1 million in GCI, or I want it to be the year I do 200,000 in GCI, whatever your number is. We've got to get more realistic with ourselves about what our needs are versus what our desires are, first of all, and then get very granular about what does it take to actually generate that number. So for everybody who's watching this, either now or later when they're watching the recording, my first question is, do you have a clear understanding of what your personal expenses are? What does it take for you to have the quality of life that you want? And this is not just your mortgage payment, your car payment, your credit card debt, those types of things. It's, do you have a gym membership? Do you like still getting the newspaper? Are you regularly contributing money to your church or the Boy Scouts, or all of those things contribute to that overall number? And I realize most people don't run a comprehensive QuickBooks accounting of their personal life. They just, the business gets that, but the personal life gets whatever's left over, right? So I really encourage each of you to sit down and say, what does it truly cost me to live the way I want to live? And the way I'm currently living is one number, and the way I'd like to be living might be another number. And they could be either way. Maybe you traveled too much this year and that was too much, and next year you're going to cut it back. Or maybe you threw a whole bunch of money at high interest debt this year, and now it's gone, and next year that's freed up. Get a real clear picture of where you're at and where you want to be. So that's the first step. On top of that, then, if we're working backwards, we've got that personal number, we've got business expenses, and we can look at what we've been doing, but we're also, as we build out this plan, going to be looking at what we're contemplating doing. And then let's not forget to add the tax man, any retirement or investment money you're wanting to set aside, so that when you come up with a gross number, it's truly a gross number. A lot of people say, I need to make $100,000. I say, why is that? Because my expenses run $8,000 a month. Okay, well, do your expenses include paying taxes on the money you make? Well, no. Okay, so that 100 just became 130. What else is missing from there? Does that, what you have right now, give you the quality of life you want? Well, no, I'm not traveling like I want to. Okay, what trips do you want to take? How much are those trips going to cost? Now we need to put that back into the number so that we have that net number. So if we want to pocket 100,000, maybe that number is actually 150,000. Now we need to add taxes on to that. So now maybe our number is 185,000. So we start seeing we can't count on what we want in our little pockets at the end of the year is not what we need to gross. And if you need help walking through those numbers, I have a worksheet you can use, and I'm happy to spend 15, 20 minutes with you on the phone. So reach out if you need that. At no cost. I'm not trying to solicit you as a coaching client. So once we have that gross income number, and by the way, do any of the three of you on this call have an idea what that number is, or do you need to do a little more tooling around before you come up with the number?
Yeah, I need to dig at that. I
Okay.
kind of look at what I want to take home in my payroll, but that's not my gross business, you know?
Right. So would it be okay with you guys if I just pick a random number and we operate off of that for the sake of doing math? Okay.
Sure.
So I like round numbers. So let's say we determine in order to have all the things we want and pay for the team and all these good things, we need to gross $1 million. Are we okay with the round, lots of zeros? So now we need to determine what does that mean in terms of sales volume and number of transactions. So now we're going to need to know, number one, what's your average sales price in your market right now? Number two, what is your average compensation for your professional services look like in your market? And if you have a split with your broker, then that number will be impacted further by that split. So we're gathering this data so that we have a foundation. So if we want to gross $1 million, let's say we figure out that the average compensation that's coming in on a transaction in my market, let's say my average sales price is $300,000. And I figure out that the average compensation for a $300,000 sale in my market is running about $7,500. And then let's say on top of that, I'm paying 20% into my brokerage. So I'm keeping 80% of that number, so $6,000. So we've determined now that if I sell one house, the money that's going to show up in my account after closing is $6,000. So that's what we're going to operate with. Your number could be much higher. It could be a little lower. You've got to do your homework and find out. So if I want to do $1 million, and I know I'm going to make $6,000 every time I sell a house, I'm going to just pull the calculator up real quick because I can't do this math in my head. Maybe some of you can. Hats off to you if you can.
At 165.
So I get 167 transactions. Okay. Sandra was real freaking close. So now my determination is, how am I going to take these 167 transactions and assign my different silos of business to a portion of those transactions? Now, if you've been in the business a while, you have some history to look at, and it's important to know your history. So any of you know what percentage of your business comes from past clients and sphere of influence?
60 to 65%.
Okay, so let's say it's 60%. So we take that 167 transactions in Sandra's example, and we say 60% of that is going to be 100. So 100 of my transactions are going to come out of my database. That means there are 67 other transactions I got to go find somewhere else. So I can look at my history. I can look at what's going on in my market. I can look at trends in the industry as a whole, and I can start making some decisions. Maybe I have real success with open houses. Maybe out of every one open house I have one person who ends up converting. So I look at my business historically and say, you know, I like to do maybe one open house a month, or maybe I have team members, so we're going to do 3 open houses a month. Maybe your conversion is lower than that or higher than that. But you could now say open houses is going to be one of my silos of business. And I'm going to assign out of those 67, I'm going to choose what number I'm going to hold accountable to coming from open houses. So let's just pick a random number. Let's say we decided we're going to do 2 open houses a month. And let's say our conversion rate is a little lower. Let's maybe say out of every 3 open houses we do, we get 2 transactions. So if we're doing 2 a month, that's 24 over the course of the year. And we know 2/3 of those are going to generate us business. So now we have 16 coming from our open houses. Now, where else might we be looking for business? Where do you, any of you geographic farm? Are you working the probate market? So Sandra, you're geographic farming. Do you happen to know what percentage of your business typically comes out of your farms?
15 to 20% a year.
That's fantastic. So
In the
let's be
same farm
conservative
for
again.
12 years.
I will tell you guys, when you're doing business planning, always be conservative with your revenue and overestimate on your expenses. So if I take 15% of Sandra's 167, then I've got 25 transactions that I'm going to count on my geographic farm to generate. Okay, so that's 141. We still have 26 more transactions that got to come from somewhere. So what other areas might you guys be focusing on to generate business?
So I count on my organizations. I mean, I count on like RRC, going to those conferences and being involved in that organization is about 10% of my business.
Okay, so agent to agent referrals, great resource. So in this example, we'd be saying 17 transactions are coming out of our agent to agent referrals. Okay, so now we're at, what is that, 4158? We need 9 more transactions. Where are we going to get them? Are we going to start advertising as a senior specialist? Are we going to do first-time home buyer seminars? What is something that you guys have perhaps contemplated doing?
I belong
Or-
to a local networking group that I get a lot of referrals from. It's just literally, it's really a financial planning type group, but we have a happy hour once a month and meet, and I've done quite a bit of business from that. So just local
So I'm going to
networking
speak
groups.
to that. A lot of people would roll, Tammy, that group of people into their sphere of influence, which would be part of that original number. If you are breaking down your business lead sources more granularly with that category, then absolutely
Okay.
set them off. Let's put something new in there. Let's say we've been listening to all the statistics about the silver tsunami, and we were at Star Power Conference and we sat in Catherine and Julian Ambrose's session and got fired up about serving seniors. So we're going to put something in place to take those 9 other transactions and get them from the senior market. How does that sound? Fair enough? Okay. So where we got to go next with this is, okay, each of these 5 categories we have now, we have our past clients sphere of influence, we have our open houses, we have our geographic farm, we have our agent to agent referrals, and we have our senior specialization. Each one of those deserves some attention with intention to make sure those transactions happen. So Sandra, I'm going to bet when you pull your marketing plan out that you're going straight to, what have I used in the past? What does it cost me? Am I going to keep doing that? Do I feel like that is supporting the overall goal? And typically, a lot of the things in the marketing category for most people exist because of past clients and sphere of influence. So you've got an e-newsletter going out, you're mailing postcards to those folks, you're doing client appreciation events. Those are all very tangible things with very tangible costs. And so you can walk through all of those. Have any of you done Ninja Selling training? Okay, so Larry Kendall's program, and there's a ton of research been done by other organizations, but I'm just going to lean on Ninja Selling for the statistics. Whatever the size of your database, you have the potential for 10% of that number, if you're following up well with those people, will produce transactions over the course of a year. So if you have a clean database with 1,000 people, there should be 100 transactions in there waiting for you to find them. Those people themselves or the referrals that they will give you of other people they know. So step number 1 to serve your database is just to make sure your database is cleaned up. What are the 4 pieces of information that we need to have on all clients?
Question.
We need what? First, we need their names, right? Physical mailing address. Can't send them a postcard if we don't have a physical mailing address. Phone number, and then their email. When we think about all the ways we want to market, setting social media aside, because our past clients and sphere of influence already know us, like us, trust us, we're reaching out to them. We may or may not have had a transaction with them. You know, those people in your networking group, Tammy, may have not sold a house with you or bought a house with you, but are referring business to you. So if we don't have really good data, and you may say, you know what, I've had these emails for years, or I've had these phone numbers for years. Some of these people, I sold them a house 30 years ago. They didn't have an email address and they had a landline. We still need to touch every single person with the dialogue. Is this the best phone number for us to use? Is this the best email for us to use? Is this the best physical mailing address? Sandra, if I want to drop you a handwritten note, is this still the best address for me to use? Because reality is, guys, sometimes your people move and they don't tell you.
Indeed.
And we have to go through that drama, right? So cleaning up your database first, and then you can launch into all the wonderful things that you're going to do. I'm going to set them aside for now because in the interest of time, I want to make sure that we give proper attention to all those other silos. Everyone typically has the easiest time figuring out what to do with their past clients in their sphere and the hardest time figuring out what to do with everyone else. So looking at where we want the business to come from, open houses. Most people don't have a strategic plan for holding and following up from open houses. So y'all can get the ads out there. Y'all can put the signs in the yard. Y'all can unlock the door. But what happens when people come through the door and after you close the door? What's your follow-up campaign that you're launching to find out whether or not these people are viable? So are you sending a handwritten note? Are you even asking for a physical mailing address when they come in your open house? We all know now, if you're going to work with these people, they're going to be signing a professional representation agreement with you as a buyer. Are you acquiring all the needed data to continue to stay in contact with them? Now, state by state, I understand it's different in terms of what you have to actually do during the open house. For example, in New Jersey, you have to post a sign that says, I am the official representative of the person who's listed this property. They have a printed sign they have to put up now. I'm sure in Alabama, you guys don't have that. But I'm happy to share it with you, Sandra. If you'd like to have a look at it, I'll email it to you.
Curious.
Yeah. So what are we doing when people come through the door? Are we having them still sign the old-fashioned sheet of paper? Fill in name, address? Most people don't like to write anything anymore. So can you get an Open Home Pro, or do you have another app available to you through your board, for example, or through your franchise to go ahead and sign people up digitally? A lot of people are much more warmed up. God bless COVID. Do you go anywhere that they don't hold a screen up to you now and you have to click a button and do a tip? And even the smoothie place that you drive through wants you to put 18, 20, or 22%. So you might just have an iPad or a tablet with you or your laptop and have people digitally sign into your open house. And how do you get them to do that? The seller is asked that everyone who comes through the property has to register in order to see the house. Okay. I want to spend too much time going off in the weeds with that, but we've got to have a system. So if you can follow up with someone after the open house, they get a handwritten note from you. They get an email from you. You send a text to their phone number, and all of these things happen in the first 24 hours. Do you think you're ahead of the game with all the other agents that held open houses that day? Absolutely. And then how many more times do you think you need to drip on them before you can have a pretty good idea whether or not they're going to come back around and work with you?
Yeah, minimum of 6, I would imagine.
The range used to be 5 to 8. Get this, it's now 12 to 15.
Really?
But bear in mind that combines handwritten notes, phone calls, texts, emails. Let's say, Sandra, you came through my open house today. The first thing I do right after that open house is I make a quick call. You're not going to answer. So I go in your voicemail and I say, Sandra, I just wanted to thank you so much for stopping by 123 Main Street today. And to remind you, whatever questions you have real estate related, whether about this property or anything else real estate related, I'm happy to help. Reach out to me anytime. And then right after I leave that voicemail, I shoot you a text. And all I say is, Sandra, I just left you a voicemail. This is Amy, the realtor from the open house. I'm here if you need me for anything at all. That's the whole text. And then I drop you an email. And I say, hey, Sandra, just wanted to let you know I left you a voicemail message, sent you a text. Here's some things you might want to think about during your home buying process. And I just give a few things in the email.
Mhm.
And now I write the handwritten note. All 4 of those things happen for this lead right after the open house. I'm not dragging it out over days, but 4 out of my 12 touches just happened in the first 24 hours.
Wow.
So lather, rinse, repeat. You can do the same process. Now, that might be more assertive than you want to be. Maybe you only want to do an email and a handwritten note because you're just terrified of your own telephone. Okay. Maybe a little less effective, but consistency is key. So if you can do email, handwritten note, email, handwritten note, email, handwritten note, by the end of the week, you could potentially have 6 out of those 12. And listen, if you get through 12 contacts and they're not responding, throw them in your drip campaign, in your newsletter list, whatever, and forget about them. Move on. There are more people more needy of you right now than those people. All right, so have a plan. Anything you're going to invest time in and hold accountable to producing results for you needs to have a campaign or a plan. So, Sandra, talk to me about your geographic farm. What are you doing there?
2,250 homes. Well, I have done a lot of different things. This year it was postcards. I'm looking seriously at getting hooked back up with Discover Publications here, because I don't feel that the postcards have been as effective as I would have liked. And then they're 4 contiguous neighborhoods, and we try to be involved in any kind of activity that is the neighborhood is hosting and whatnot. Be visible. We'll be at a little thing called Art in the Park on Saturday. We're the premier sponsor, if you will, and we'll be there with our tent, and we'll be giving away hats.
Fun.
Hats.
They are the hat team. Way to work your branding, Sandra. Now, Sandra, you said how many years you've been at this geographic farming?
Well, virtually since I got into the business, so well over 40 years.
So Sandra has the luxury of been at this a long time. And so I would not have Sandra, if I were walking her through her business plan, we wouldn't spend any time on evaluating the farm or anything like that. She has a presence and she has market share. And so she's in maintenance mode. For those people who might be considering taking on a geographic farm, I want you to do your homework first. You may love this neighborhood, but if nothing's selling over there, you could spend a whole lot of money farming something that is just not going to produce for you. You might go into an area that does have good sales, but it's got somebody with a 40% market share, another agent. You're going to be fighting uphill and spending a lot more money to try to overtake that person's market share. So there's a lot of steps to doing your homework. We have a worksheet for that. If you're thinking about geographic farming, just reach out. We'll send you the worksheet. So there's another very comprehensive plan. Sandra knows how many times she's going to touch them, these in-person events that she might add on. All of those things are planned out, and you're going to allocate a certain amount of money to that. And I would tell all of you, when you're geographic farming or when you have a focused marketing effort, you need to look at your return on investment. So if I'm going to get 25 transactions out of that geographic farm, for example, and I know my average sale is going to net me 6,000, then that's 150,000, right? Am I doing the math right?
5 times 6 is 150.
So I'm going to look at that and say, we'd like to get a 5-to-1 return on marketing efforts, up to a 10-to-1 return. When you're starting something new, you might settle for 4-to-1. But so I'm going to look at all the money I'm going to put into those postcard mailings and those live events and whatever I might decide to do for that geographic farm. In Sandra's case, I'm going to say, well, you've been at this 40 years. You should be getting a 10-to-1 return at this point. So to make that 150,000, can you do it for 15,000 or less?
No.
If we were doing 5-to-1, we'd say, can we do it for 30,000 or less? Yeah. So let's hold our marketing accountable to some results. Now, Tammy, I'm going to pick on you. Let's talk about those agent-to-agent referrals. You have your in-person and the cost associated with that. How do you stay in contact with those folks in between the times when you might see them face-to-face?
It's my #1 goal this year is to be better at it,
on.
but through a marketing, an email campaign. I mean, I have not been as good about detailing my contacts in my database so that I can customize those emails. So it's more just all agents. And so this year, my goal is, and we just got a new CRM, so I'm in the process of moving everybody over. So this is my number one goal right now, and really to dial into where I met them so that I can send out an email referring back to that organization, specifically, and being real
Yay!
specific. And then I'm trying to send out emails talking about things I do for referrals. So like, for example, if you send a referral to me because another agent told you about me, I send that other agent $500 too. So you're not just the person getting the referral, the person that gave you my name also gets something. So I try to, want to communicate that out, that if you give my name out, I'm gonna thank you as well, sending out letters like that, talking about Idaho and just running an email campaign to those other agents.
Yeah, so I love what you're doing. At the very least, people should know when you remind them where you are, what's special about where you are and what's special about you. Those two things. And so you can give market updates. Things you already prepare can be repurposed for your agent to agent communications. If you already do a newsletter, typically there are things in, at least quarterly, you're probably throwing in a market update. So why
Right.
not share that with your agent to agent referral sources? And then, like you said, Tammy, what is it that you're going to do special to make sure that the referrals they send are going to close? So there's an opportunity to just help them get to know you better and how you do business better. So Heidi Joy, who's out of Tampa, they have a beautiful weekly newsletter template format they use for their past clients in their sphere of influence. And I'm sure she'd be happy for all of you to be on it. So you can email Heidi@homewithjoy.com and ask her to put you on there. They took that exact same template and just tailored it for all their agents in their database. And, it's like 4 categories. They changed the categories up just a little bit, but they made it easy so they don't have to do a lot of reinventing the wheel. They've got crossover material in there, and they don't send it out weekly. I think it goes out maybe once a month. But there's intentionality there, but there's also repurposing of content so that they don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
Right.
So whatever that plan looks like, agents in your referral network have to hear from you at least quarterly. So if you can plan for that. Our past client and sphere of influence database, how often do they need to hear from you? Any guesses?
I would say monthly, but
They need to see something from you at least twice a month. So it's an e-newsletter, it's a blast email for Happy 4th of July or National Donut Day. It's a postcard in the mail, it's a handwritten note, any of those things count as seeing you. They need to actually hear from you. And that's a personal one-to-one message. So that could be a phone call. It could be a text if they prefer texting. It could be a direct message through social media if that's how they prefer to communicate with you. But it's just you and me talking. They need to have that at minimum twice a year, preferably once a quarter. Now, if you've got a huge database, it's a question I get all the time, but Amy, I have 5,000 people in my database. I couldn't possibly talk to them all once a quarter. There's a subset of those 5,000 that are your core people, your repeats, your referral sources. You need to figure out who those people are and what number is manageable for you. Let's say it's 250. If they've got to hear from you once a quarter, count it 10 weeks when you do it manually the first time. Can you do 25 in a week? That's 5 a day. Of course you can. Most of those are messages. You're not going to actually have a 30-minute conversation with 25 people. So if you can start with that number and say, this is manageable and these are my most important people, my 250, then those are the ones who get that extra layer of attention. And if you have a team, then you can break it up by the team members. Sorry, it's a soapbox I get on. I can't ever talk business planning and not end up there. It just happens. Okay, so we've got our plan for our agent-to-agent referrals. We've got our plan for open houses. We've got our plan for geographic farm. How about our seniors? This is a brand new one. So what do we feel we need to do to capture these 9 seniors? Now, this is 54,000 in potential net income to us. Let's say we want to really hit it out of the park, so we're willing to settle for a 5-to-1 return on that. So we're willing to spend up to 10 grand to get this launched. 10-to-1 would have you at 5,400, right? So we know we won't spend more than $10,000. We'd like to spend less than $10,000. And by the way, if you're going to do things like live seminars, you can get sponsors and zero base those puppies. So maybe it costs you a whole lot less.
Yeah.
But what does that campaign look like? How are you going to do your outreach? Sandra.
I think your number one thing to do is buddy up closely to the marketing directors, sales directors of the senior facilities in your town, because they hold the key.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of money, but I do think you have to really spend time with them and make them feel important.
Absolutely. Get that face-to-face time.
Yeah.
And what do we do at that time? Do we go in selling how awesome we are?
No, we go in asking what kind of problems they have that we can help them solve.
Exactly. Music to my ears, Sandra. So let's say we have, I don't know, pick a number. How many communities do you have in your market, Sandra? What's the potential?
13 or 14.
Okay. So out of those 13 or 14, just a gut response to this next question. How many do you think are worthwhile for you to invest your time in going to visit and talk to?
Probably half of those.
Okay. How quickly do you want to make this happen? Do you want to hit all 6 of them in a month? Do you want to take the first quarter and do 2 a month? This is how we're working through the plan. We're really breaking it down.
Now, my approach would be to be one-on-one with each of, let's say, the 7 in the month of January.
Okay. So
Where-
now we've got our calendar out. This is deeper
Perhaps.
level business planning. We've got the month of January calendar laying printed right there or
Right.
up on your laptop, however you access your calendar. And you're picking, what days do I want to do this?
One of the things I would request, maybe not on the first meeting, because I would want to tour the facility with them. And as I say, listen to what their wants, needs, and desires are. And then maybe on the second face-to-face, ask for permission to hold a seminar inside their facility for their residents and their would-be residents, and then go from there.
Excellent, Sandra. There are many other things we could be considering that we want to do. So we're just going to walk through them the same way I did with Sandra right now. We won't do it on the call today, but you're going to say, okay, I think I'd like to put together a right sizing seminar or a downsizing seminar, or I think I'd like to put together a seminar on estate planning and what it means to put a house in a trust. You can go as narrow or as wide as you want with these seminars, but maybe you say once a quarter, I want to do a seminar that attracts the senior market. And then we drill down on what do I need to make an individual seminar happen? I need my guest speakers. I need a facility. I'm going to serve refreshments. I'm going to do invitations not only through my database, but also maybe I'm running Facebook posts. And we just keep breaking it down until we have all the pieces involved, the timeframes involved, who are the people we need to contact, what sponsors might we get involved, so that by the time we've wrapped up this business planning process for each of these categories, we have solid plans that support the bigger plan. And then we're going to identify who on my team, remember I mentioned team and systems. Let me just fast forward through these slides real quick. Okay, so you may need some support. And first thing, can I outsource it? Does it have to be done internally, or is that somebody I could outsource it to? Sandra's talking to Discover Publications about doing a newsletter. She doesn't have to create the paper. She just has to know who can make the paper for her. Now, maybe you need some stuff done on Canva, and while Tammy's really good at it, maybe, she knows it's a black hole and she can spend hours in Canva when she should be on the phone with clients. So she finds a VA who's really good with Canva, and she can give them project-based work to do. So she doesn't have the commitment of a full-time staff person. She's just got someone she can say, this month I need these 3 projects done, and tackle it that way. Now we start getting into, maybe we need more leverage. Maybe we need someone full-time just dedicated to all the myriad projects that we have going. That may be an approach too. So team isn't always about butts in seats in an office somewhere who need payroll taxes taken out and all these kinds of good things. Broaden your mind about what the possibilities and the solutions might be. I do want to touch on, I'm watching the time and I want to just open it up to conversation. So I do want to touch on systems just really quick, if I may. There are 3 types of systems. We have systems to navigate our transactions. So when we take a listing, when we get an under contract on a listing to get it to closing, when we contract a buyer to use our services, when they get an accepted offer and it goes to closing. All those things are transactionally related. Even we go on the listing appointment, they're not ready to list. We need a system in place to stay with them until the day they're ready to list. Follow-up systems relate to any person you have contact with. So that could be your past clients, your Clients for Life campaign. It could be people you met who are prospects who haven't decided that they're ready to list or buy. You need systems in place to continue to follow up with people. I always say there shouldn't be a single person in your database that doesn't have a next attached to them. What is the next thing that's going to happen with them? So even those open house leads that you did 12 touches on and you got no response to, their next was to put them into your ongoing newsletter, e-newsletter, and just drip on them forever until they either tell you to leave them alone, they transact, or you find out that they're gone. And then you have systems for your internal operations. So part of your business planning is saying which of our internal operations are doing really well and which of them might need some work. So maybe, go ahead,
Give
Sandra.
an example of what you're talking about.
At the very simplest level, you hire somebody to be your director of first impressions. Do you have a system in place to tell her how to open the office every day and what needs to be done? What gets turned on and what doesn't? At night, does she have to make sure that the copier gets powered down, the coffee pot's off, the plants are watered, the dog dish got refilled out front of your office? Whatever, that's a very basic level system, but it's a system. So it's not transactionally related, and it's not business generation, marketing related. It's just day-to-day office. Keeping a par sheet for supplies in the office, for example, that's a system. Here are all the things that we keep stocked. And when it gets below this level, under this par, then we need to order more of those. So we don't run out and find ourselves, we don't have the binders we want for our seller presentation books that we take to the listing appointment, for example. Those are the internal operations items. So as you're sitting down to do your business planning, make sure that you're not only doing your production goals, but you're also looking at, do I need any additional support in the coming year? Because there's a cost associated with that, which rolls back to your financial plan, budget and expenses, and what systems need tweaking. Maybe I just found out yesterday, we were doing STAR interviews. I just found out yesterday that there's someone who's still limping along with Agent Office. That CRM has been dead for years. They're fortunate that it's still running, but it's not in the cloud. There's no tech support. If something happens tomorrow and it dies, they are SOL. So, are there any pieces of technology that need to be updated for you in the coming year? To me, that's also a part of systems. It's internal operations, right? So, don't just do the numbers. Your whole business deserves your attention. and it will impact how you budget for the coming year. Now, it's not uncommon to get to the end of this process and say, I should go back to the financial and make some tweaks based on what I've realized I need in these different areas. That's coming full circle or getting to all 5 points of the star in your business planning process. I know I've been all over the map. I went down a few rabbit holes, but based on what we've covered and what you came to the call wanting to get, what else can I give you today that helps you better prepare for 2025? What do you need? Dave has been so quiet today. He's just absorbing. He's usually imparting wisdom, and it's fun to see him in this other chair today.
Well, it's true. I have been absorbing it. And I was going to comment though that where we do most of our open houses, we have an advantage. We have to put a sign out front saying there's an open house and to call this number to get in the gate. It's a gated community. So we get a contact number right off the bat. Of course, the downside
Oh,
is we
I
don't
love
get
that.
drive-by traffic, but we at least know they're coming and we at least we can start off with, oh, so you're so-and-so. And it's been a real natural flow to get their contact information then and we put them on the search and all the things that you do. But we do have that advantage where we do most of our open houses.
So cool. Now you got my wheels turning. Like, Dave, how could we recreate that scenario for Sandra's market where it's not gated? You know, you're in historic. Wouldn't it be cool if we could come up with a way to recreate that for you, Sandra? Recreate that
Yes.
experience?
Fabulous.
I do partner with lenders or title. I don't ever go to open house anymore alone. So I have a registration desk set up and I have them man it. And I don't let them in without it. I say, you know, if somebody pushes back, it's like for my safety and by the seller's preference, we are requiring registration. You know, if they're unwilling to, they can contact the realtor for a private showing. Is kind of how we approach it. And that way there's somebody outside and I can just focus on the people and I'm not alone at these houses. So
I love that.
Good thinking.
Yeah, and the other
We-
thought I had,
Yes.
talking about the going to the senior living facilities to get people, we're talking a 2-hour drive to have anything of substance. It's just not practical. When people sell property here, they're not going to be in the area and they're not in there is no senior living facilities here, so it's not like
Virtual
you can farm them.
seminar.
So we have to find them somewhere else. I'm not sure what that method's going to be, but
Oh, I got it for you, Dave. I have a client who is in Missouri, and he decided it was during COVID, so he decided to go virtual. And he started simply with a Facebook post. And I think you have your whole group, your geographic group in a Facebook group, don't you?
we have a big chunk of them, yeah.
So he started just with the post and said, hey, I don't know who else is either dealing with parents who are aging or is considering what their next step is. I'm thinking about putting together a webinar of specialists who can talk about everything from decluttering to estate planning to, and he threw out 3 or 4 things. Who else is in my position and would be interested in getting some professional advice? And it blew up his feed. People are making suggestions, and then people support what they help create. So once he asked the question, now they're all engaged. So he said, okay, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to put this group together. Here are the people I'm thinking about inviting. Have I forgotten anybody? People chime in. I want this service provider, that service provider. Okay, now here's when we're going to hold it. We'd love to have you all join. And he did it more informally. It wasn't necessarily labeled, we're doing a right sizing seminar. It was just this collective brain trust being helpful in answering questions. And that's where he kicked his off. And he's doing them all virtually. He hasn't gone to an in-person because it's working well for him.
Okay,
It's
well,
an
that-
easy thing. You know, you may live here, your kids are in Seattle and Boston, and they're going to have a say in what happens with your house. Now you can just, everybody can get the link and they can all join in.
That's a-
Your absentee homeowners can
Yeah.
patch in from wherever they are, Dave.
Well, I will be looking into that part of it. And then one other thing I just wanted to comment on, it's a way that Judy used the system to generate a pretty phenomenal deal, actually. We've had a lot that's been listed for several months out, and not where we live, but in the area. They call it the ranch. It's a very exclusive neighborhood. Dues for homeowners are about $6,000 a year. Taxes on this property are probably about 5 or 6,000. So the guy's owned it for 15 years. So his money hole is getting deeper and deeper. He called to talk about what he had heard about NAR and the new guidelines and how is his money being divided. So Judy explained to him 3% to a buyer's agent would help incentivize somebody. He says, well, I'll give you incentive. How about if I give you 7% to list it and 3% to sell it? So she said, be happy to take that and run with it. So she dug up some clients, and we actually had both sides of the deal closed last week. So people
Congratulations.
call with questions, answer them.
Yeah, no kidding. Be of service. Be the person who always helps people. You know, I don't want to get too spiritual on you guys, but isn't that what we were taught? Be kind and love people. 2 rules, real simple. Just be kind and love people. And part of being kind is when somebody needs help, you help them get it. You don't have to have all the answers, but you sure as heck can find the people who do have the answers. All right,
And-
what else would help you guys as you're getting into your business planning?
Do you have any type of a worksheet on digging into those financials that you can send out?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
happy to.
that'd be great.
Do me a favor, Tammy, because I
Uh-huh.
do have to run to appointment after this. If you would just shoot me an email so I don't forget. I'll send it to all of you guys, but Tammy has the ownership of sending me the email so I don't let it fall through the cracks.
Thank you.
Very good.
My pleasure. Hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much.
It always is, Amy.
Oh, you're kind. It's my pleasure to help. I love doing business planning. And I was sincere about my offer. If anybody gets stuck at any point in their process, just reach out. Happy to help.
Okay.
All right, everybody have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.